Hello and welcome to my Throne of Thunder raid guide. My name is Aliena, and in this video I'll show you all you have to know about the Council of Elders, the third boss in this new raid instance. We completed this fight with 2 tanks, 3 healers and 5 DPS, but similar raid configurations may work just as well. The Council of Elders is a single-phase encounter comprised of 4 separate bosses that do not share a health pool. There's no penalty for killing one of the council members first before the others. However, to make things a little harder, Kazra'jin comes back from death to help the council on this fight. He'll empower one of the trolls at a time, which changes and complicates their abilities. The only way to break a council member out of empower is to reduce their health by 25%. This gives you a rough kill order because an empowered council member gains dark energy. When their dark energy bar reaches 100, they start casting an ability called Dark Power. Dark Power inflicts stacking shadow damage to all raid members every second. A raid could survive this for about 10 seconds if they really had to, but it's much better to keep tabs on who's empowered and break them out before their bar reaches 100. Let's go over each council member's abilities and how they change when empowered. First up, Frost King Malik. His main ability is Frigid Assault, which causes melee attacks to deal an extra 75,000 frost damage. Each melee hit will also inflict a debuff, also called Frigid Assault. When this debuff reaches 15 stacks, the target gets stunned for 15 seconds. To avoid this, you'll require frequent tank changes. Frost King Malik also uses Biting Cold on a random ranged raid member, which deals about 115k frost damage every 2 seconds, for 30 seconds on the afflicted person and within 4 yards of them, so the afflicted person needs to stay clear of other people. It is possible to get rid of Biting Cold through abilities such as Vanish and Ice Block. When Malik is empowered, he'll use Frostbite on a random ranged raid member instead of Biting Cold. It'll place 5 stacks of the debuff on the affected person, which is a pretty big dot, but having 2 raid members stay within 4 yards of the affected person will reduce the stacks down to 1, and is overall a lot less damage taken. So in short, for Biting Cold you want to stay clear and heal through it. For Frostbite, have 2 people stack with the affected person. We had 3 ranged DPS assigned to handle Frostbite. 2 were the primary stackers, the last was a backup in case one of the primary stackers got it. Secondly, we have High Priestess Marley. Marley is a caster and her main ability is Wrath of the Loa, a simple, interruptible, heavy-hitting nuke that she spams constantly. Her next ability is Blessed Loa Spirit. This is an ad that spawns on top of Marley and moves to the troll with the current least amount of health. The ad moves quickly but can be stunned and slowed with anything available. If it reaches the targeted boss, it will heal him for 10% of his maximum health. If it isn't dead after 20 seconds, it will jump to the boss and heal them instantly. When she's empowered, Wrath of the Loa will deal shadow damage instead of holy damage, but is otherwise identical, and Blessed Loa Spirit will become Shadowed Loa Spirit, which again behaves identically to its non-empowered version. The difference is that instead of a boss, the Shadowed Loa Spirit will target a ranged raid member and move to kill them instantly. The third council member is Kazra'jin. Kazra'jin is not tanked and only has 1 ability most of the time, Reckless Charge. He'll turn toward a randomly selected raid member and after about 2 seconds charge at them, hitting anyone in the way for some mild damage and knocking up any raid member that is within 5 yards of his initially selected impact point. Reckless Charge has a clear ground animation and can easily be avoided by moving out of the gray line on the ground. When empowered, Kazra'jin will overload after every single Reckless Charge. This stuns the boss for 20 seconds, but he will reflect 25% of all damage taken back to the raid while stunned. Since you need to DPS him to stop him being empowered, it is inevitable that the raid will take heavy damage just from punching themselves in the face. Last up, we have Sul the Sandcrawler. Sul's main ability is Sand Bolt, which deals 150k nature damage to players within 5 yards of his targeted location. This is interruptible. His second ability is Quicksand, for which he'll target a random player and snare them and put a puddle of sand under them. The afflicted person needs to be dispelled as soon as possible and then move out of the quicksand puddle that's left behind. The quicksand puddle will remain until Sul is empowered and uses Sandstorm, which deals heavy AoE damage to all raid members and turns all quicksand pools into living sands. Living sands must be killed before Sul casts his next Sandstorm, or they will be healed to full and gain a 100% damage buff. Upon dying, they collapse back into the quicksand puddle, so sadly you do not get rid of them for the entire encounter. So what's a good strategy to kill the council? Well, since it's a very hectic council fight with a lot of random chance, I'll give you some cliff notes for a general strategy that should help a lot. Positioning is very important. Since Marley summons ads that will beeline for the lowest health council member, you want to position her away from the others. To do this, have one of your tanks pick her up at the start and drag her to the far south of the arena. Your other tank should grab both Frost King Malik and Sul the Sandcrawler and drag them to the far north of the arena. The raid should be spread out in the middle of the arena to avoid extra damage taken from Biting Cold and Sandbolt. Once your Marley tank has sufficient initial threat on Marley, he should run over to the other tank in melee group to get ready for tank swaps on Frost King Malik. You want to avoid a tank getting to 15 stacks of Frigid Assault, so your tanks need to communicate when to taunt. Marley will keep casting on him from afar. It's also important to find a good DPS split for your raid composition. We had a Fury Warrior permanently on Sul, so him and the Sul tank could share interrupting Sandbolt. The rest of our DPS team was primarily on whichever council member was currently empowered, with the exception of Marley adds and Living Sands, which take priority. Malik will always be empowered first, so your raid will have to be ready for Frostbite straight away. After that, the empowerment order is random, so your raid will have to be ready to switch targets on the fly. When Marley is empowered, your tank should drag both Malik and Zul over to her as to make good use of the cleave range, and to make tank swaps easier, since the ads she spawns while empowered will not heal other council members, but instead aim to kill a raid member. There is no danger of accidentally healing a boss. It is also advised to interrupt Marley's Wrath of the Loa when she's empowered. Everyone is hitting her anyway, so it should avoid some extra damage. Marley's ads can and should be slowed and stunned, and your ranged raid members should make sure to take those out as soon as possible. You don't want them to reach their target ever. When Kazra'jin is empowered, you want to be ready for overload and the subsequent raid damage that will be taken. This is a good time for raid cooldowns such as Spirit Child, Devotion Aura, Revival, etc. Sul's empowered Sandstorm is another high damage ability and should be cooldowned. You'll likely have 2 Sandstorms each time he's empowered, so make sure to set up a cooldown rotation ahead of time. Dealing with the living sand ads quickly is of the utmost priority. You do not want any up when the next sandstorm happens. Have your less burdened tank, so the one that's not currently tanking Malik, pick up and group up the ads, then AoE them down. They will collapse back into quicksands when they die, so be ready to move out of them. Your living sand tank should try to drop the new quicksands in convenient locations so they aren't blocking the middle of the arena. Which troll dies first is not crucial, though we found it helpful to put extra damage in Sul the Sandcrawler when we could. Quicksands will remain for the rest of the encounter, so you will have more and more living sands to contend with while he's empowered. On top of that, Sandstorm is a lot of AoE damage and a nice one to get out of the way. While the amount of abilities and information can't seem overwhelming, once you have a good grasp on positioning, your raid moves out of stuff on the ground and your DPS has found a good split to get all the ads and all empowered targets down in time, this fight becomes much easier. I'm putting a link to the whole encounter into the video info, in case you want to see how we dealt with the various mechanics in detail. Good luck and have fun!